A young man goes out with friends on a summer day in Mississippi. Everyone comes home, everyone except him. His body is found days later on a remote, uninhabited barrier island. The official explanation raises more questions than it answers. Critical organs are withheld from an independent examiner. And now, a stranger on the internet is staring directly into the camera and delivering a chilling ultimatum to those he believes are responsible. Make it right, he says, or I'll leak everything. This is the case of Nolan Wells, and something about it refuses to stay quiet. If you are new here, welcome to Unrivaled True Crime, the channel that does not look away when the system tries to close its eyes. Hit that subscribe button and turn on your notifications, because cases like this one are exactly why this channel exists. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He lived along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a region defined by its warm summers, its waterways, and its tight-knit communities. By all accounts, Nolan was a young man full of life, sociable, easygoing, and the kind of person who moved through the world without enemies. He had the kind of future that should have been long and full. Instead, in July of 2026, everything came to an abrupt and devastating end on a stretch of sand and scrub that most people have never heard of. Horn Island sits approximately 12 miles off the Mississippi Gulf Coast, accessible only by boat. It is part of the Gulf Islands National Seashore, a federally protected, uninhabited barrier island with no roads, no bridges, and no permanent residents. It is a place of striking natural beauty, but it is also a place of profound isolation. What happens on Horn Island happens far from witnesses, far from surveillance cameras, and far from the ordinary reach of accountability. Nolan Wells went out with a group of friends. According to what has been publicly reported, the group included 4 white companions. They set out together. At some point during or after that outing, Nolan Wells and his companions were separated. All 4 of those companions returned home safely. Nolan did not. His body was later discovered on Horn Island. The question that has driven this case from the very beginning is straightforward and devastating. How does a group of young men go out together, and only one of them, the only black member of the group, ends up dead on a remote, inaccessible island? When Nolan's family learned that local authorities were moving toward a conclusion of accidental drowning, they did not accept it. They could not accept it. And rather than simply grieve in silence and trust a system that has historically failed black families in Mississippi, they made a decision that would ultimately place this case under a national spotlight. They commissioned a privately funded independent autopsy, and the man they chose to conduct it is not someone whose findings can be easily dismissed. Dr. Roger Mitchell Jr. is one of the most distinguished forensic pathologists in the United States. He completed his undergraduate education at Cornell University and earned his medical degree from SUNY Upstate Medical University. His residency and fellowship training was completed at George Washington University Hospital and at the New York City office of the Chief Medical Examiner, one of the busiest and most rigorous medical examiner offices in the world. He went on to serve as the Chief Medical Examiner of Washington, D.C. He served as president of the National Medical Association, the oldest and largest organization of black physicians in the country. He holds a tenured professorship in pathology at Howard University, previously served as president of Howard University Hospital, and co-authored the book Death in Custody. He is a nationally recognized authority on violence as a public health issue. This is not a man who makes careless conclusions. Dr. Mitchell conducted the independent autopsy on Nolan Wells. His official ruling on the cause of death, undetermined. Not drowning, not accidental, undetermined. And the reason his ruling remains undetermined is one of the most troubling details to emerge from this entire case. Dr. Mitchell has not been able to complete his examination because the local coroner retained Nolan Wells's lungs and throat, and those organs were not sent with the body. In a case where drowning has been suggested as the cause of death, the lungs are the single most critical piece of biological evidence. They would show whether water was present in the airways, whether aspiration occurred, and whether the physiological markers consistent with drowning actually exist. The throat, similarly, could reveal evidence of compression, obstruction, or trauma. Without those organs, a definitive determination cannot be made. Dr. Mitchell has made clear that he is waiting on those remains before he can finalize his findings. The question of why those specific organs were withheld has not been answered with any satisfying explanation from the local coroner's office, and that silence has only deepened the suspicions of the family and the broader public following this case. Meanwhile, pressure is mounting from another direction entirely. A reward fund of $125,000 has been established for information leading to the arrest or conviction of the person or persons responsible for Nolan Wells's death. That is a substantial sum, the kind of money that has a way of loosening lips and dissolving loyalties. Investigators and advocates alike understand that when multiple people share knowledge of a crime, the financial and legal incentives created by a reward can fracture even the most carefully maintained silence. The reward remains active, and public calls have been made to continue growing that fund. But perhaps the most striking development in recent days did not come from law enforcement, or from a formal investigation, or from a press conference. It came from a social media account. A man identifying himself only as Brad, posting under the TikTok handle Brad Final Thoughts, has delivered a direct and public ultimatum aimed at those he claims are responsible for Nolan Wells's death. His message was unambiguous. Either the people responsible come forward and make it right, or he will leak everything he knows. He did not qualify the statement. He did not hedge. He spoke with the kind of specificity and directness that suggests he believes he possesses real, damaging information. Brad's online presence covers dark and often sobering subject matter. Those who have spent time reviewing his content describe it as intense. But his statement regarding Nolan Wells was not rambling or vague. It was targeted. He spoke directly to what he characterized as the killers of Nolan Wells, and he gave them a clear choice. Whether Brad has evidence that rises to the level of what he is implying has not been independently verified. What is known is that he has chosen to issue a public warning rather than immediately approach authorities, and that choice alone raises meaningful questions. Is he giving the responsible parties an opportunity to come forward before he forces the matter? Does he distrust the local system enough to believe that going directly to authorities would be futile? And if he does possess credible information, what happens next? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the questions that could determine whether justice is ever served in this case. It is impossible to discuss what happened to Nolan Wells without acknowledging the state in which it happened. Mississippi carries a history that cannot be separated from cases like this one. The documented record of racial violence in that state, and of the institutional failures that allowed perpetrators to escape accountability for generations, is not ancient history. It is living context. It shapes how families respond when their loved ones are found dead under suspicious circumstances. It shapes why an independent autopsy was commissioned, rather than trusting the local findings alone. It shapes why a $125,000 reward exists, and why a man named Brad is making public threats instead of walking quietly into a sheriff's office. Nolan Wells was 18 years old. He had a family that loved him. He had a future. He went out with friends on a summer day in July 2026 on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and he never came home. His lungs and throat remain in the custody of a local coroner. One of the country's foremost forensic pathologists is waiting. A mystery man has drawn a line in the sand, and a $125,000 reward is waiting for the person who decides the truth is worth more than the silence. The case is not closed, the pressure is not going away, and Nolan Wells deserves answers. If this story moved you, if it made you angry, if it made you demand more, then you are exactly who Unrivaled True Crime was built for. Like this video so more people find it. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss an update on this case or any other where justice is still waiting. Nolan Wells' story is not over, and neither is ours.